All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to wherever you are watching this video. Today I want to, again, talk about the Royals again. Put my glasses down here. It's getting a little glare here. It's kind of a cloudy day, but these are polarized glasses, and it helps helps my eyes a little bit. Usually, especially when I'm on my phone during the day or whenever on my computer screen at work, I have a blue light filter on the screen, so it just helps ease the tension on my eyes. So, not that you care about that, but whatever. Anyway, so let's talk about kind of a broader sense. You know, the Royals lost again last night. No surprise, 8-0 to Chris Sale, which is a 3-hit shutout. No takeaways from this game. I mean, one of the best pitchers in baseball history, at least modern history. Shut out the Royals. Story at 6. Big deal. So, my advice for anybody who's watching this, who's like a newer fan, you can't rest all your hopes and dreams on a game in the early part of June on a Wednesday. Okay, that's just. I mean, the Royals aren't good this year, and I get that, but don't fly off the handle. Come on, just have a little perspective. I mean, how many games, if you were cheering for the Royals in 2015, or 14 for that matter, how many games do you really, truly remember in June? Do you remember any of them? Probably not. I mean, I don't. So, anyway, so let's talk about let's talk about a larger, kind of a broader topic here about what the Royals need to do in terms of what type of team they need to be, what type of player they need to have going forward. So, as we've heard a lot, over the years, it was made famous back in 2013 when the Royals had I can't remember the two hitting coaches that, they had dual hitting coaches, and they came out and said, and so did Ned Yost, he said something like, it doesn't pay to hit home runs in Kauffman Stadium, or something to that effect, which was just it was a ridiculous comment. I mean, home runs is the ultimate hit in baseball. I mean, you hit home runs, you're probably going to win. The more home runs you hit, the better you're going to be. It just is what it is. I mean, it's instant offense, it's instant runs, and I mean, it's the Earl Weaver approach to baseball. We're gonna pitch, and then we're gonna hit 3-run home runs. We're not gonna bunt. We're not gonna steal a ton of bases. And Earl Weaver won a World Series, using this motto, and won a lot of games as the manager of Baltimore doing this. And that philosophy has really come back around in baseball, where it's all about launch angles. It's all about hitting the ball out of the ballpark, and so you're taking more chances. And so it's one of the reasons why we're on a pace for a record number of strikeouts this year. And it's also one of the reasons why we're on pace for record home runs as well. So why, when baseball is on a record-setting trend, why do the Royals try to buck that trend? Well, my first thought is because the Royals tried to buck the trend and did in 2014 and 2015. And I'm going to say 2013 as well, because they started doing it then. The foundations were laid in the years prior. Now, what they were doing, it wasn't like they were reinventing the game in terms of like what you did in the late 70s, early 80s, early to mid 80s, where it was all about, empty batting averages, lots of stolen bases, and a lot of 2-1 wins. What the Royals did when they won their World Series 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago, was they found value. It was similar to the Moneyball approach, that Billy Beane had, and they found value where other teams didn't. They understood the importance of just filling their team with unbelievable defensive players, and they shortened games. They had an entire bullpen, especially in 15, even though Greg Holland was lost towards the end of the season, but they had an entire bullpen full of guys who could just get guys out. Now, they weren't always perfect in the bullpen. I mean, Kelvin Herrera in 2015 had an ERA like 2.7, 2.75, something like that, which is still really, really good. Don't get me wrong. And he was almost unhittable in the playoffs. But I mean, 2.75, he's still giving up some runs now and then. So they're not infallible by any means, but the Royals shortened games, and they said, we're gonna have starting pitching that's just gonna be good enough, and then we're gonna win the last 3 to 4 innings because we're gonna shut you down and we're gonna give our team, our offense, enough time to scratch across a few runs. Now they hit some home runs, and but they made contact at such an unbelievably high rate, and they didn't strike out. And in a time where defensive teams were starting to shift more, teams like the Royals and the San Francisco Giants, they were doing a lot more shifts. And you saw that. San Francisco kind of pioneered this. It's one of the reasons why they won 3 World Series titles in 5 years. It's one of the reasons why they beat the Royals in 2014. The Royals actually probably win that game, Game 7. People talk about the 9th inning all the time. It was really, I think it was the 8th inning when Aoki hit that screamer down the left field line. And was it Ishikawa or Blanco, whoever it was, had him played perfectly. I mean, just played absolutely perfectly. If you're playing straight up, that ball's into the corner. It's at least a double, maybe a triple if it rattles around there. And the Royals take the lead. And who knows what happens. But anyway, we're not going to talk about that. But the Royals found value those years in doing something that other teams didn't. But it wasn't so drastic that it became a detriment to their own team. People talk about how they were just this slap happy, hit the, bunting, stolen base team, and that's all they ever did. Well, that's really selling what the Royals did. It's still really selling them short. Because they had some pop. They had quite a few guys that could hit the ball, over the fence at any one time. And one of the biggest compliments that the Royals would have, and it came from who was the guy? Was it Tom Verducci? Yeah, I think it was Tom Verducci who was is he the one who was in the booth with Joe Buck and Harold Reynolds? Yeah. So one of the biggest compliments Tom Verducci gave the Royals during that playoff run, I believe it was in Game 2 against the Mets, when he said, "You don't know where you are in the lineup when you're facing them." He says they all can do about the same thing. And that is a tremendous compliment to the Royals. Now, that being said, I mean, Alcides Escobar is not going to ever be confused with Kendrys Morales. But you understood what his point was, is that at any one time, I mean, when Alex Gordon and Alex Rios were hitting 8 and 9, that's tremendous length to your lineup. That's one of the things the Royals don't have this year. Is they don't have length to their lineup. They have like 4 or 5, well, now 4 because Dozier's on the DL. They have 4 guys right now that can hit the ball, and they're not really hitting right now either. Anyway, so what the Royals tried to do this year is they tried to find value again and do something that was contrary to what the rest of baseball was doing. Now the rest of baseball is going towards this launch angle, hit lots of home runs. We don't worry about making contact. And the Royals this year, the way that Dayton Moore constructed the roster was to fill the roster up with a bunch of guys who, I guess, could steal bases and make contact. The problem is that these guys don't know how to get on base. And they're still striking out a ton, but they're not hitting home runs. At least not hitting home runs at the rate everybody else is. Solaire's hitting home runs. And Dozier was, but they've got all these holes. And it frustrates me that, I'm not saying that the Royals have to be a carbon copy of what the rest of the league is doing, but the Royals really need to take a look at, because they found value when their playoff runs a couple years back, in putting the ball in play and taking advantage of teams who weren't using defensive metrics to their advantage. And they were taking advantage of teams that didn't scout, where they were going to hit the ball. One of the reasons why Aoki was so successful in 2014, Aoki and his magic stick is what they called it, especially during that stretch run in August where it was Aoki and Butler who just carried the Royals when for quite a while, especially when Gordon got really cold and Hosmer was on the DL. I mean, it was Butler and Aoki who were every single night were getting multiple hits. But right now, what teams are doing is that they're shifting defensively. They're taking away part of the field where you typically hit the ball. They're making it more difficult for you to get on base. So these high contact teams, like what the Royals did in 2015, they're negating that to a certain extent. And so when teams like the Royals, who don't hit the ball over the fence at a very high rate, they can't get on base that often, and they can't put their speed in play, which I think stolen bases are a little overrated. I think they have value. I mean, we've seen that in the past. They absolutely have value. I mean, a stolen base by Dave Martinez changed the course of the 2004 American League Championship Series. Maybe the most famous stolen base in baseball history. But in today's game, if you can't get on base consistently, there's not a lot of point in trying to play this high contact, try to do this high contact, low strikeout deal. Now, strikeouts are bad. You shouldn't want to strike out, because a strikeout is a dead, because even when you put the ball in play, you're still giving yourself a chance to get on base either by a hit or an error or something. A guy flubs a ground ball or whatever. But teams are valuing the defensive metrics to the point now where that it's not a competitive advantage for a team like the Royals. It's a similar thing as when they say when the government was going to give everybody a stipend, what was it, a $3,000 stipend, to reinvigorate the economy or something like that. What had happened 10 years ago or something like that? Yeah, sure. I'll take it. I'll use it. I'll go buy something with it, or I'll save it, whatever. But if everybody gets $3,000, does anybody get $3,000? Because everybody's getting it. So what's the point? Because everyone's getting the same thing. Really, nobody's getting anything. Because the people who are putting goods out, they're getting the same money too. I don't know. If everybody gets something, it's not special. And so getting back to baseball, if everybody is doing these super awesome metrics on defensive shifts and defensive efficiency and all these sabermetric ways of looking at how to play defense, if everyone's doing it, then if you're not doing it, you're at a competitive disadvantage. So it's up to teams to find value in what other teams aren't doing again. And baseball is cyclical. They go through cycles. I mean, there will come a day when teams won't shift defensively for whatever reason. There will come a day when it will happen again. And I don't know if it's going to be based upon rule changes by Major League Baseball. I really don't think baseball should do that. I am a firm believer that you let the game figure itself out. Don't make a rule that says you can't shift defensively or you can't have 3 infielders on the left side of the field. I think that's bad for baseball. I really do. I know that they're trying to make things more exciting. They're trying to speed the game up. They're trying to get more action. But to me, that's not doing it the right way. You're artificially trying to stifle something while you're trying to bring something else up. Now, there's a lot of arguments made for that. People talk about the NFL, how rules are always changing, and they seem to be changing in the NFL, to benefit the offenses, because that's what people like to see. They like to see one of the biggest games this past year was the Rams and the Chiefs, when the Rams won 54-51 over the Chiefs. And they just talk about how an amazing game, back and forth game it was. Does anybody talk about a game that, and I don't know if this game happened, okay, so don't, because I'm not a huge football fan, but does anybody remember a game when the Bears beat the Eagles, 9-6? I mean, I'm sure that game happened, or 13-7. I'm sure the Bears and the Packers played a couple games like that this year or something. Do people pay attention to those games? Maybe the purists do. Maybe the football purists are like, man, that was a great defensive struggle. There was lots of great play on the line, and they couldn't do anything. And the average fan doesn't want to see that. They just don't. Your hardcore football fans, they love it. Absolutely love it. The average fan doesn't like that. The average fan would prefer the 54-51 game. That's why the Super Bowl this past year was just absolutely trashed by most people, because it was boring. And they would rather see teams get out there and actually score score and do something more exciting than just 3 plays punt, 3 plays punt, 3 plays punt, 4 plays punt. Anyway, I'm getting close to the office here, but one of the things this final point I want to make about the Royals and what they really need to be looking at doing, I think as they start heading forward now, and they've drafted a bunch of college players in this draft. After taking Bobby Witt Jr., they've taken a ton of college players, so they're trying to speed up this rebuild. They want these guys to get to the major leagues quicker. They're taking the shotgun approach. We're gonna look for lots and lots and lots of guys, and surely we'll hit on some of them, and that's their approach, and that's the right approach to take. Now, what do you do? What kind of players are you looking for? The Royals really shouldn't be looking for clones of Billy Hamilton. They honestly shouldn't be looking for clones of Lorenzo Cain either. They need to be looking for guys like Hunter Dozier and Jorge Soler. Guys like that. Now, guys like Whit Merrifield, those guys have tremendous value because they have a lot of versatility. And you're going to need guys like that. But I question the long-term viability and value of a player like Nicky Lopez, for example. Now, I think Nicky Lopez plays the game the right way. I love his approach to the game. I don't think he has enough power, though, to really make much of an impact at the major league level consistently. And at the major league level, if you can take the bat out of someone's hands, you relegate them to a 220 average, even if their on-base percentage is 100 points higher at 320, if they hit 220 with a 320 on base with no power, that's still not a very valuable player. Yeah, his on-base percentage is really good in comparison to his batting average, so it means he is drawing walks. But the times when he does hit the ball, if all he's doing is hitting singles 2 out of every 10 times, and he's not hitting doubles, he's not hitting triples, he's not hitting the ball out of the ballpark, what is the point of that player? That's the kind of player the Royals are trying to develop. And in my opinion, let me get stopped here. And in my opinion, that's a mistake by the Royals to approach it that way. So the Royals need to be looking for guys that can hit the ball. I'm not saying they need to look for 50 home run guys. Now, those guys would be extremely valuable, but the Royals need to be looking for consistently. They need to be able to fill their roster with 9 batters that can hit at the minimum of 15 home runs. Minimum. That's baseball today. And I know they play in a larger ballpark, but they've got to find guys that can hit the ball out of Kauffman Stadium consistently. That's how they're going to win baseball games now. You're going to need starting pitching. You're going to need some back-end bullpen, and you're going to need to have some boppers to hit the ball over the fence. The Royals need to stop looking for these jackrabbits who can just run fast. That's what speed do. That's not the game anymore. And the Royals need to realize that, and they need to realize that they're not finding value in players like Terrence Gore and Billy Hamilton. Those guys are an absolute waste of roster space. They need to be finding more Jorge Solers and Hunter Doziers who can hit the ball out of the ballpark, who can hit the ball into the gaps and drive in guys. Now, you're talking about driving in guys. People don't like the RBI stat because it's dependent upon somebody else getting on base. They're like, well, then, Nicky Lopez could get on base. That is true. So, but that's where guys like Whit Merrifield come in. Guys who get on base, but also have high slugging percentages too. Guys like Alex Gordon, Whit Merrifield. That's what I'm saying. Minimum 15 home runs. Those guys are 15 home run guys. They're not 25, 30 home run guys. They're 15 home run guys. But you need to fill your roster with five players in the starting lineup that can hit 15 home runs. Another couple players that can hit 25, and one or two that can hit 30 to 40 home runs. That's what you need. That's how you're going to win in baseball today. In the Royals, that's what their approach should be going forward. We'll see what happens through this draft and through some acquisitions they're going to make in the offseason. So I got to get into work. Thanks for watching this video.